Also guys, before putting that wheel back on, now's a good time to get the inside of that wheel clean, as it's really difficult to reach in there when the wheel's on the car. Next thing you're going to do is remove the H6 bolt that goes right in there, that holds the rotor to the hub. And when you do that, if you put WD-40 in here, it'll rotate a little bit, which isn't an issue. Just be careful with that. Then you're going to remove 2 of these bolts from the rear of the caliper. You're going to use a 18 millimeter with a couple extensions to get that bottom one out. There's going to be one right there and one right there. These are the slide pins, which you're going to have to remove and re-grease if you choose to do so. Clean that up, clean the grease out, take them out, re-grease them, put the brake grease on there and put them back in. And then here are your pads that you're going to remove. Make sure that the caliper is on top of some sort of surface, not the ground, just hanging by that cable, because these are really heavy and potentially you could cause a leak. After you've put the vehicle up in the air, you can jack it by the rear diff, put a piece of wood in there, and then put 2 jack stands if you have them, something to support the vehicle on each side. Remove the lug bolts first, then soak all the bolts in WD-40 behind the caliper. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a little bit of brake grease. Okay, usually these come in the kit. And what you're going to do is put a little bit of brake grease on the actual caliper on the inside part where it makes contact with the pad, right? So not in the middle, but on these sides. And then you're also going to do the same on the piston itself. You're going to want to put brake grease all on the piston itself there, as well as on the little grooves, on these little grooves right here, where the brake pad will make contact with the caliper. Next, what you're going to want to do is take some paper towel, WD-40, and some cleaner, and what you're going to do is sand this whole area to make sure you get a proper seat between the back of the rotor and the actual hub of the vehicle. After that's completed, I just kind of washed out the grease and stuff from the caliper, re-greased the pins, put the pins back in. This piece you can actually leave in, you don't have to remove it at all. And push the caliper back in. Just make sure that you have a pad in there when you're pushing in, and all you can do is, if the pad is in there, just take anything you have laying around like this, open it. When you open this up, what it'll do is that caliper will go in, allowing you for room to put the new pads in onto the new rotor. Okay guys, so we are essentially complete here. That little pin I did have to remove. I wanted to try this time without removing it, but when you're putting that pad in right there, there's no way you can put that in without that removed. So you just take a screwdriver right here, peel it back, and then push from this side and this side, and it'll actually pop out. And you can put it back in when you're done putting those pads in. Don't forget to grease here and grease here, which I will do. The pins are already, I removed them, cleaned them, and re-greased them, put them back. Rotor is on with that hex bolt in there. Cleaned the entire rotor with some sort of brake cleaner. I didn't have any, so you can use throttle body cleaner as well. Clean everything front and back to make sure there's no oil residue on anything regarding either the pad surface inside touching the rotor itself or anywhere on the rotor. You want to make sure that's completely cleaned off from any oils. And then last but not least, this vehicle is equipped with a spacer. So you're gonna take the rust off of the spacer on the inside there with sanding it and WD-40, and then you're gonna put the spacer back in. and that would be complete. One more thing, guys, it's an optional step, but what I did was I had some rust-proof Rust-Oleum paint that I just lightly touched up to cover up the rusty spots on that little on the bracket there, and I just cleaned up the rotor as best as I could. On the back here, these bolts, you're going to have to hand tighten it. Do not use an impact. So the 2 bolts that you took out, put those back in. And I had it set to, let me see, where's it? Here it is.